If you are trying to run your business, answer emails while spoon feeding your child dinner and putting them down for sleep, while also then trying to build out your next funnel and your strategy from ChatGPT on your phone, then you're actually not being productive because you're losing your presence. And in this episode today, we're going to dive into the difference between multitasking that removes you from your superpower of presence and habit stacking, which can actually 10x your results. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Crown Yourself podcast. I am so honored to have you here. I'm so excited to be back on video. It's been a minute and it's this just being back on video and YouTube is like fulfilling this desire and need that I didn't know that I had. We are talking today about habit stacking versus multitasking because I have seen many moms, and many moms have asked me on my Instagram at Kimberly.Spencer about what is this habit stacking thing? Because I've been showing it a lot now as a parent of 3 children while running 2 businesses and owning 3. So one I don't run, it's run by other people, but I run 2, and it's a lot. It's dealing with a lot, and also breastfeeding, which, by the way, full-time job. To the moms who decide to breastfeed, to the moms who choose to formula, I get it. So that being said, I remember back when I was a new mom, and this is like first-time mom. This is almost 8 years ago. And every time I say 8 years ago, because this is the 3rd take that I've had on this video, every time I say 8 years ago, though, it does bring up a little bit of the mom feels right now, all the hormones, and just my baby's turning 8 this summer. I'm in awe. But this experience of motherhood has been such an initiation, and time after time, no matter how many kids I have, and I'm done. But what I learned with my first child, with Declan, was so powerful as to how I need to have presence. And what I mean is, when I was a new mom with Declan, I had this mentality that set expectations that created friction in being present with my son and also being present with my business and what it required. And I only had one at the time. I had 1 child and 1 business, and that was my Crown Yourself coaching business. And when I would multitask, so I would have a baby on the boob, I would be doing something on my computer, and he would be fussing, and I would get frustrated with the expectation that I could finish certain things on my computer, work things, getting systems built, funnels built, all the things, while my baby was suckling at the breast. And if you would get fussy or have a little gas, I would get upset because my expectation was I'm not going to get interrupted, because multitasking sets an expectation for the brain to be able to do this scattered thinking of 32 tabs open on your browser while doing other things. And it actually creates an incoherence in your heart and brain connection. So the presence of being able to be with my child in those sacred moments, or the presence with being able to be devoted to my business and what I was creating, it created this chaotic multitasking moment where actually I wasn't doing well in either of them, in getting either things handled, taken care of, nurtured, because I was scattered with my energy. So the difference between that multitasking and habit stacking is realizing how much presence does a task really need. So I realized, and this took me a couple years, quite frankly, that I struggle to do the deep work when my kids are in the room, because they want a snack, or they're doing something on their iPads, or they're asking me for help with something on their iPads because they hit a button that they probably shouldn't be in settings, and turned off the Wi-Fi. So I realized that I struggle with doing the deep work. So in order for me to do the deep work, I have to focus solely on that sacred space of devotion without the children. And that being said, sometimes it is fun as a mom to be able to do the less deep work. So responding to emails, checking our social calendar, and making sure that that is all where things need to be, to do that while my kids have their iPad. So we have a working session together. And I posted a video on my Instagram a while back because my husband was in awe at what I was doing, but I was responding to client messages, and I was able to be attentive to my kids and what they were creating as well, because I was in this space of a dance, not expecting that I was going to get back to every client message within that time because I had my kids with me. So the first part of habit stacking comes with monitoring your expectation and also being aware of your capacity. So when I started looking at habit stacking is where you do a task that doesn't necessarily require much brain power, but it is doing something that makes you feel and improve in some other way. So for example, if my daughter is sleeping, I can whiten my teeth while also doing some things on my computer because she's asleep. When my daughter takes a nap, I can do that because I can do the whitening of my teeth doesn't require me to do anything except for getting set up. My daughter's asleep, so I have a certain amount of time that I know she will sleep for, so I can just pound out and get a few things done on my to-do list. And then the teeth whitening doesn't require any brain power whatsoever. And I can also do that while also doing power pumping, which, holy moly, to all the breastfeeding mothers, I feel you. To all those mothers who have decided to switch to formula, I completely understand. Now, there is an energetic difference between multitasking, which results in fragmentation and depletion, and habit stacking, which creates greater coherence and amplification. Habit stacking is the queen's approach to productivity. Multitasking creates a servitude to the tasks and to the expectations that you have for their completion, which more often than not, if you're a high achiever, those expectations are probably a little unrealistic. So the key distinction between the two is that multitasking is divided attention, diminished results. Habit stacking is paired patterns. So with habit stacking, you have paired patterns, which creates expanded results with ease. So how do you create habit stacking? So first you want to identify an anchor habit. So for me, I know that my daughter typically takes a nap around 2:30 in the afternoon. Now I pair this nap. Sometimes I'll pair it with work, but sometimes I'll pair it with teeth whitening and doing transcendental meditation. That is two things that I don't have to actually think about. Transcendental meditation allows me to meditate. She's asleep. I'm able to take that break for myself, or I can read a book. So you want to identify that anchor habit. Another example is when I have podcast interviews that I go on as a guest. One of the tools, one of the habits that I recommend having if you're going on guesting on other people's podcasts as a strategy for lead generation and business growth, which is part of ours. I literally wrote the book on it called Make Every Podcast Want You. If you're going on guest podcasts, do them the courtesy of listening to an episode. That way you build rapport with the podcaster. You understand what the scenario you're going into, because sometimes little things can throw you off. Like one time I went on a podcast and I didn't recognize that for example, I was prepping for a podcast interview, and by listening to the podcaster's interview, I realized, oh my gosh, he has a very thick South African accent. So it didn't throw me off, or I wasn't trying to understand it because I had prepared my unconscious mind to listen through the thick accent. And that is powerful because professionals prepare. So one of the ways that I stack habits is when I'm doing my makeup for the day, my hair, makeup, like I've showered, I listen to a podcast episode for the interviews that I'm going on that day. And I listen to it at twice the speed, sometimes 2.5 times the speed. At first, I'll listen to it first at 1 time the speed so I can kind of understand the cadence and listen to the tempo of how it will actually go. And then I will listen to that for about maybe 5-10 minutes. And then I'll turn it up to 2 times the speed to be able to hear the content and the quality of the questions that are being asked. So that way I'm prepared to go into the interview. Not only can I say, I've listened to your podcast, I value your time, I value what you're creating by going on the show, but it shows the podcaster that I actually care about their show. And honestly, when you're going on a podcast, as a complete side note, podcasters want to know that you're caring about their show and you will take care of their audience. So I attach that micro habit, which is a habit that I don't have to think through. I'm just listening to it and letting it go into my unconscious mind and letting it process while I'm doing my hair and makeup so that I can be prepared for the interview. And I'll usually also pair that with pumping because again, breastfeeding, full-time job, but you want to keep the habits that you're stacking small. So maybe one thing is listening to a podcast. Maybe the other thing is doing a teeth whitening or a breastfeeding or a hair treatment or removing the nail polish off your nails, something small, something that makes you feel really confident. So each habit is allowing you to do something that furthers you in an area of life that you're wanting to progress in. Like, so let's, for example, doing the makeup. I want to show up looking good. Like I just am that type of person. I'm a former beauty queen. Like I like doing my hair and makeup. It's meditative for me. I call it my warrior paint. And I do that while I'm listening to a podcast interview, because the podcast interview is then preparing me to be a strong business owner, a strong guest, and look for ways that I can connect my episode to other people's episode. I'm listening for all the things that I talk about in my book. I'm listening for how can I create a polarizing perspective or a different perspective or a different take, or expand on something that another guest has provided them with information and content, so that way my podcast episode can stand out. And then simultaneously, I'm also most likely pumping. Sometimes I'm whitening my teeth, but it's those pieces of those little habits that you can do. So the big difference for mompreneurs especially is habit stacking creates space for the little things that you need to do. And this could also be like, you could do it while doing your laundry. Like while putting your laundry away, you listen to a podcast interview that you're going to be doing that day. And then the other piece, you could be carrying around the baby in the Bjorn. Like, and I don't mean like the bouncy Bjorn. I mean like literally carrying the baby around. So that's another way that I habit stack. Another way that I habit stack is I walk. And I walk while carrying my daughter, while also reviewing our podcast edits and our podcast process, and just looking at some management things as a business owner. So that allows me to have the space to be moving my body. I'm still taking care of my daughter. She's probably napping in the Bjorn. And then I'm able to take care of something that's a business task, normally something that's more admin, more management, reviewing a podcast episode that we're releasing, reviewing the video, all that. So look at the difference of how you can first identify that current anchor habit. Is it your morning coffee? Is it a walk? Can you do the walk on the treadmill? What else could you do on the treadmill? Could you read a book? Could you put your laptop on there and edit your podcast episodes? Could you, and I've done that one before. Could you do skincare? Identify a current anchor habit and then attach one intentional micro action to it. That can be podcasting, that can be prepping for a podcast, that can be some business management tasks, that can be breastfeeding, that can be pumping. Keep the stack small. You don't want to create this huge, like I'm doing 40 things. Keep the stack small. Typically a habit stack is like 3, maybe 4, and then track your emotional shift. So the other small habits that you're adding on typically don't require a lot of extra brain power. So for example, when I do my walks with my daughter in the Bjorn, I know she's taken care of because she's most likely napping, because it's very comfortable for her to fall asleep while in movement, because that's how she was in the womb. And then I'm doing the walk, which doesn't require brain power. It's actually really good for people who have ADHD. And then on top of it, I'm doing some light email work, or I'm reviewing podcast edits, or I'm doing management. So that's the thing that actually requires the brain power. So look at what is a task or an activity that requires brain power, and then what are habits that you could stack on top of it. For example, you could also do a morning walk and then produce your social media content. More often than not, most leaders that I coach, having coached leaders now for 9 years, have their best thinking while going on walks. So just film it, record and capture those ideas. And then you have something to post later on. You don't have to post it that minute, because you're in the space of doing the thing. But while you're in the space and you've got the free flowing juices of nature roaming around your body and you're getting all those ideas, let yourself bust out your camera and just film. Get some filming and get some capturing of your thoughts, your feelings, your perspectives, so that you can put those out on social media. Or you could turn those into a podcast, or you get your podcast notes done. And if you wanted to stack it further, like for me as a mom of a little, like I'll take my daughter on a walk, like outside, and I'll just capture those thoughts, those ideas. That's where I got the idea for this podcast. Actually, no, this one was from habit stacking while driving from the dentist, while breastfeeding, while listening to a podcast that I'm going to be going on in 2 days. And then, and it was a longer podcast. So I was like, I need more than a makeup session, which makeup only takes me about 15 minutes. And then getting the idea for another podcast episode, which is actually this episode. So here we go. This episode is literally birthed from habit stacking. And this is a skill set. So this is a skill set to recognize the emotional shifts of your expectations for the stacked habits, so that you're not shifting mentally, because studies show the mental shifts that you make when multitasking, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes to then get back into that mental flow state. which is why I don't recommend doing deep work with children around, because that's not effective habit stacking. That is literally multitasking as a parent, because you've got the kids, you've got the work, you've got the things that require all your attention. And especially biologically as a parent, you are wired to look out for danger. And if you have multiple children who are under the age of 8, then there are feet and elbows and things and body parts getting like thrown around on a couch or things like that. People need snacks and things like that. And you are wired to attune to those needs as a parent. So doing work while with kids does not necessarily create an effective workflow. So habit stacking can be a way to maximize your time while you are doing other things. This is one of the skill sets that we are working on inside of my new membership program, The Collective, where we're not just building businesses, we are focusing on creating energetic ecosystems that create holistic success so that you can have presence. And within your presence, there is power, presence with your family, with your kids, in the primary relationships of your life, and also have presence with your business and the devotion that you have to get your creative work into the world. And that's what we're diving into in The Collective. If you are interested in jumping in on that membership and opening yourself up to high caliber, high performance business coaching. Once a month, I pop on, we do some group coaching through my Queen Bee curriculum, which has taken many of my private one-on-one clients to multiple 6 figures and 7 figures and beyond. So if that's the curriculum that you're like, yes, Queen, how do I get in on this? How do I get monthly work on my mindset, skill set, systems, branding, marketing, sales, and have those tools, those skill sets that apply in all those areas also apply to how I sell my kid on eating broccoli and how I sell my family on moving to a different place, or how I market myself as a mom to my community, how I put myself out there to my community and not only put myself out there as a business owner. So if that's something that you're like, yes, Queen, I want to get in on, then click down below for you to jump in and let's start stacking the rituals that serve your reign. As always, my fellow sovereigns, own your throne, mind your business, because your reign is now.